Let's talk about the future.
Okay.
From New York, NBC, New York hospital won't deliver babies after unvaccinated staff quit. 6 maternity staff members resigned from Lewis County General Hospital during the past week, worsening an existing staff shortage. So you've got a labor shortage, then they do the mandates, then more people quit, now they can't deliver babies. So let's hit on what the point you're making. First, this is what happens with the mandates. People are like, I won't do it, I'm gone.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the future? These babies, where will they be born? They'll be born, and they're going to be born in different circumstances. This will have a profound impact on this country for 40, 70 years. Mm-hmm. So I take a look now. We were talking about this the other day about these these young democratic socialist types, these Gen Zers who are like in their 20s and they're socialists, and they don't care to interact in good faith on Twitter. No. You know, they'll say something like pronouns in the bio, right? That's, mm-hmm. is that Zuby's razor?
Zuby's razor, yeah.
If there's pronouns in the bio, just ignore it. Well, so I've tried in good faith interacting with people, and they'll say something inflammatory. Mm-hmm. I'll respond with a simple point, not inflammatory, and then they'll respond with derision and insults. Yep. And you know what I think is that these are the kids of the 2008 financial crisis. They were kids growing up at a time when their parents were hurting, mm-hmm. and then as they get older, and millennials also, a lot of them, you live in this nightmare dystopia of financial crises and warped values, celebrities ultra rich for, you know, photoshopping their faces on Instagram. What values do you hold? And now they're voting for people like Joe Biden. Why? Because it's funny. You know, everything they said about Trump and Trump supporters is them. Voting for Joe Biden was the right thing to do because Trump was bad. But they accused Trump supporters of voting for Trump because it was a troll or it was a game. What we have now is a generation of people who don't care about the outcomes, don't have strong moral values, generally don't care other than, you know, I don't know, is it going to be funny? Am I going to troll somebody? Is it going to watch am I going to watch the world burn or whatever?
They call that opportunity cost. The cost that you of what you don't do because of what you did. Like if you choose to do this, all these other things that you didn't do have a cost because you could have made money or made things from all those things that you didn't do. The opportunity cost of the war in Iraq is now we have psychotic people walking around that think it's normal to be at war. We have the financial crisis, kids stressed out because their parents are stressed out.
Imagine that. Imagine growing up with like a Leave It to Beaver family. You know, you walk in and there's a big stack of pancakes and bacon and they're like, go to school and work hard, son. And you're like, oh, joy. And your problems were mostly like interpersonal issues, but not my family lost their house. Yeah. We're struggling. There's homeless people everywhere. Now take a look at the kids being born today. Yikes, man. Fourth turning, right? Maybe hard times will make strong men and then we'll get a boom period in the next 20 years. Or maybe you're going to have a bunch of dejected, angry, dystopian babies who just want to watch the world burn, man.
Yeah.
A generation of jokers.
Yeah, I think a big problem as well, and I touch on this a lot, is I always say that in the modern West, there's something that a lot of people lack, and those two things are perspective and gratitude, right? Because I was kind of having this conversation with Lydia earlier, which is that it's simultaneously true that things are going crazy and it's kind of scary and this is getting worse and that's getting worse and this is bad. But when you kind of zoom out on a historical level or on a global level, you're still like, man, we live on some fantasy island. I mean, just what we're doing right here is magical. Any of our ancestors would just see this. They'll be like, wait, how is my great great grandson earning a living and making money? He's doing what? He's talking. Wait, what? Internet? What are you? Right?
Microphone.
Like what? Like the whole thing we're
writing
doing
on parchment and sending it overseas by boat.
Yeah, and there's so much opportunity. We all know we're all online people. We can see the sheer amount of opportunity that's out there, as well, is phenomenal. Like what I do for a living, what you do for a living, even just a couple decades ago, even 15 years ago, it wouldn't have been able to be possible in the way that it is now. So we live in this weird. There's this weird, I don't know the right word, juxtaposition where simultaneously it's like, oh man, like this is really worrying. There's this moral decay. There's this cultural malaise. People are giving up their freedoms. People are wanting to embrace radical ideas and cause this division and whatever. But then on the flip side, you're also like, man, compared to previous decades and previous centuries, things are amazing. And you look around the world and it's like, oh, wow, actually, you know, where would you rather be? You get all these people, man, the USA, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, where do you want to move to?
Who was that comedian who was cranking it in front of all those women he got in trouble for?
Louis C.K.?
Louis C.K. That's
yeah.
right. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's him. He has this bit where he's like, "Why is everybody so pissed off? Everything's amazing. You got this thing in your phone. It can show you whatever you want, and people are complaining." And you know what? It was a great bit. And I think someone needed to just tell him about the Rat Utopia experiment and behavioral sync. Are you familiar with the Rat Utopia experiment?
I am. Reiterate it for me.
Simple version is this dude created the space where he put in like 8 rats or whatever, gave them unlimited food and water, and just that's it. They had a utopia. And then after a few generations, they started fighting each other, killing each other.
Yeah.
Some stopped reproducing altogether. There was some. I think eventually it became the rat experiment. Some were called the beautiful ones. They would groom themselves to perfection and do nothing else.
Yes,
some became gay. And so this was the concept he called behavioral sync. Now the problem is, this is really fascinating. We had Shane, who's writing for our mysteries show, and he does articles on the site, talk to Brett Weinstein about this. And Brett said that one of the problems with laboratory mice is they don't inherit information like wild mice and rats do. Every species inherits some kind of knowledge from their parent. Like I mentioned, mentioned earlier, I got these baby chickens that are completely raised by humans and they don't know to eat bugs. But if the babies are raised by the parent chicken, the parent shows them to eat bugs. So they're not getting access to that information. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we're experiencing some kind of behavioral sync where we've gotten to the point where everything is so good that we've just lost perspective. There's no struggle anymore.
We need resistance. Resistance is a natural part of reality, where if a tree doesn't have wind resistance, it falls over. And if we don't have external resistance, the internal starts to resist itself because we need resistance. That's why working out is so good. You need to force trauma on yourself or it will be forced upon.
And that's so interesting. I mean, you have to, if you live in a country like the US, UK, Canada, and you're just decently well off, you literally have to go out of your way. If you want to be strong and resilient, both mentally and physically, you have to deliberately go out of your way to create hardship, right? Like, I'm really into weightlifting, powerlifting, bodybuilding and stuff. It's like, and sometimes I laugh at the concept because I'm like, I'm literally artificially doing stuff that previous generations or ancestors, like the concept of this would be silly to them.
Wasting energy.
Yeah. Like, and you have to do that because if you don't, just your day-to-day life is so sedentary and so inactive that your body is going to go to crap if you don't actually create that intentional hardship. And I think, like, I mean, if you think of human beings, it's so recent and it's only in a certain part of the world so far where you can even, where you even have this luxury, right? All of our ancestors just to survive. Right? Like, what do we do if we get hungry? Right? You open a fridge, or you walk across the street, or you tap a button on your phone, whatever, and something just comes and feeds you. You can get all these exotic foods from different parts of the world. In the past, or even in other countries, it's like, you're hungry. Okay, you got to farm. You got to pull out some vegetables, or you got to go hunt an animal. Chase. I'm sure you've probably seen these documentaries where people are like chasing one animal for like 12 hours or something, and then they kill it. And I'm just like, that's more close actually to the human norm than the way that we live.
True. You ever see or you ever read or see the Watchmen graphic novel or movie?
I saw the movie.
So like Dr. Manhattan can see through time. Like he perceives time differently from humans. It's like nonlinear. And then there's that point where at the end when he's confronting the villain, the villain was using tachyons to obscure Dr. Manhattan's vision of the future. And then he says, I want to thank you. I've almost lost the joy of not knowing, or I forgot the joy of not knowing. And I'm like, that idea right there. There used to be a time where you'd grow up, and not even that long ago, 100 years maybe, and you'd be like, I heard about in this one island, they have food. It's made of snails, and they take it and they put it in oil, and you're like, whoa, I want to try that. And so you charter a boat. And it takes 3 months, and you arrive, and everything's different, and all the clothes are different, all the food's different, and you're like, wow. And they look at you, and they're like, your clothes are different, and you're like, wow. And you can go from Europe into like East Asia, where everything's different. It's still kind of like that, except When you get off the plane nowadays, what do you see?
Oh, McDonald's.
McDonald's, Starbucks, Gucci, Hard Rock Cafe.
Dollar.
Homogenization is stripping away. You know what? Fine. You want to do all that? Then give me interstellar travel so I can go experience something new.
Well, you got video games, and that's kind of also part of the problem is people are going in to the mind and playing all these games to create trauma and like exert effort and things. And I don't know, man. I think a lot of that might be tweaking.
I think that's also why, this is. I have no scientific background on this particular idea, but I have a kind of hypothesis, which is that there's a level of, let's say, anxiety. There's a level of anxiety that typically is deployed just in being able to survive, being able to get food and fight against the elements and fight against disease, potential physical violence, all of that, which if you're living in a hard place or in a hard time, naturally gets expended bit by bit on a daily basis. And I think that part of the reason why you're seeing rises in even mental health issues and people saying, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, all of this stuff, I think some of it stems from this energy or this anxiety building up and not being dissipated anywhere. I think it's also why minor threats get so exaggerated, right? Whether you're talking about the words of violence brigade, we need spaces and trigger warnings, and and if you, what happens if you misgender somebody? What do they say?
You got banned for it.
You're right, but what they say, you're denying my existence. You're trying to erase me, right? It becomes like, it's like, whoa, like that's such an extreme response to such a minor transgression. I mean, look at how we're responding to this particular virus. We know what the survival rates are in different demographics, okay? But the response, if you were looking at this response, you would think that the death rate was like 20%, 30%, right? If that were it, then you'd be like, okay, this makes sense.
Have you seen the polls of what Democrats think the death rate is? They think it's ridiculously high.
Yeah. There's some people who think that there's a 50% chance. You get the Rona and you're getting hospitalized, no matter how old you are. You've got people running around saying, I'm terrified, or I don't think it's safe for kids to go back to school. All of that. And I'm like, man, statistically, the flu is 2 to 4 times more dangerous and deadly to children than this virus. And nobody is freaking out about the flu. Nobody did freak out about the flu. And it's literally more deadly.
Well, to be fair,
okay,
the issue with coronavirus, with COVID, was the novel. Meaning that with the flu, there's different levels of immunity among different populations. Mm-hmm. So this is why the flu pandemic of 1918 didn't affect China as much, because they had previously been hit by a similar strain. So when it came back around more deadly, they had some degree of herd immunity.
Yep.
With COVID, the fear is it's going to rapidly mutate. It's gonna infect everybody to varying degrees. Mm-hmm. Might not be as dangerous for kids, but it could infect other people because it's going to sweep across, hit more people. So we do see. I guess it's a fair point that in kids, we don't see the level of risk.
No.
Ultimately, I think the problem is whether or not you go through the data and you look at, I think the death rate for COVID is like double what the flu is.
Overall, you mean?
Overall,
okay.
Right, not for kids. But the flu it's still similar with older people. Older people are substantially more susceptible to the flu than younger people. The issue ultimately is that we learn to live with the flu.
Yeah.
We look at the CDC study that says there's 80% immunity, I think, and we should accept that at this point and be like, okay, so we got something that's bad.
Yeah.
It's worse than the flu, but we're not changing it.
Yeah.
Right. So how about we protect the vulnerable, like we've been saying for over a year? We got the vaccine available. 80% of people have some level of immunity, the CDC says, and mostly based on the vaccine. It sounds like we did what we could do.
Yep.
And that's why I was saying earlier, maybe at this point, nothing is actually what you need to do. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.